Kind of trying to change things up a little bit. Probably a big swap here. First thing that we'll see up in this corner that maybe is a little different. We heard a lot of comments about a zip line. A lot of people wanted a zip line, so we really worked hard to figure out how can we get one in here. I've done one in the past. It sure didn't meet my expectations, so I wanted to make sure this one was much better. We tried to get about 70 or 60 or 70 feet out of it, and by the time you put all the safety things in, it got to be about 30 or 40 feet. So we're pushing for 100 on this one. So by the time we lose some of that, we might still be 90 or 80 or something like that. So the idea that you get a significant zip line on this edge would be a preference. Again, we're using that grade. The idea that you can walk in on the park, space in here to the restroom area. At grade, then this slightly goes gently uphill to a terrace up here, and so this is where we launch from. And up in this location also is where we have our hillside slide and some other sitting places. Using a little bit of stone to help us retain some of the grade and create some of the interest in that area. Maybe flanking this slide on either side, thinking about a hill climb. So those little kind of colored shapes, if you've seen those handholds and toe holds that they use for climbing, maybe we do something like that to give the kids a way to get right back up on that hillside. The idea of using some of the other stones and things like that. Again, this inspiration from our own location with the stone talus slopes, if you're familiar with that, that's just where the rocks have tumbled. So we started thinking about this idea of, we mentioned a lot, caves, tunnels. And we struggled with it a little bit because anytime you create like a tunnel or a cave, you've got a wonderful play opportunity, but you also have a great spot for someone to spend the night that you don't really care to have in your play area. So we kind of thought, well, what if we worked with this natural materials a little bit more? And so in a banks like this, there's large gray shape that you see here could actually be a cave that we could make using stones. Of course, we have to engineer it and do it in the right ways, but the idea of being able to create a spot like that, a little bit, talked a lot about like at Woodland Parks, if you're familiar with the little cubbies that they put off the side of the North Trails area, so every kid likes to kind of crawl in there, so it's not very deep, it's not very big, but something like that. And then this idea of tunnels. What can we do with a tunnel that we can actually be able to, kids can actually go through? So the same idea, where we took this idea of stone and stacking them, and this will kind of be explored whether we can actually pull this off structurally, but having a flat stone bridging between two flat stones, so you have a space underneath it. There are manufactured products like this. You know, I sheepishly say that because we like to stay natural, but if we wanted the feature bad enough, we might go to that if we can't solve the structural issues with doing something like that. But the whole idea of a space like this, we call it loose parts. Maybe there's things in there that the kids get to move around, whether it's stones, the concept of branches, just the fact of poles. The story I loved that was shared was family was on a hike and they stopped along the way to rest. Kids don't rest, of course, so they started going around gathering sticks, and by the time they got done, they had kind of created a little shelter or something out of sticks they were just finding on the forest floor, and thought, well, why couldn't you do something like that here? Of course, that takes some effort to keep the sticks supply replenished and things, but the idea of having, again, what we call loose parts, so that ability to be able to have something incorporated into our space there. It kind of transitions through the trees into this area, and then of course we've got our mound area, the idea of being sort of helping us close off the edges here, that whole NEMA mound idea. The pathways, a little different on this one. So our bike loop, or our kind of primary loop is circulating out here around the sort of the grand lawn space. And then we have the secondary path, kind of the adventure path. And again, this path would be something that we could cast stones in, we can play with the textures, we can put other materials, we can do leaf impressions. There's a lot of different opportunities, things that we could do with this little path to kind of give it its own sense of creativity and life. So something that we're going to still explore a little bit. There is a feature on the path on this one that's a little bit different. We call that the tunnel. What we'd like to do, and one of the things that we're inspired by is we want to make sure that all the play is accessible. because in the kids club we did have a young lady there that was in a wheelchair, and we really wanted to think about what can she experience. And of course these tunnels and bridges would be a little bit harder, but we thought if we put some sort of framework on the pathway, and if you imagine these are possibly kid-sized loops, but could be adult-sized, if we all felt like we needed to go through them. We show 5 of them, but they'd be loops that could go through and give the sense of passing through a tunnel. But we also make this one of these things for the kids, is that if you were to bring out blankets or tarps or other things, you could actually cover them, create that kind of play space. Again, the idea of letting the kids take some framework that we provide and let them run with it. You could tie ribbons on these and kind of act like you're going through the forest, all kinds of opportunities. But just this idea that something on our hard surface, circulated path that all park users and visitors could take advantage of. So, and again, I'll say, any structures or anything we put out here for build play, those are going to be accessible also. But we just wanted to enhance it a little bit more with some ideas. So we scaled back on the swings, kind of a zip line swing trade-off, so something for you to think about. So we do show a couple bays of swings in here, the 5 to 12-year-old structure in this area, and the pot structure in this area, a little bit closer to the kind of the plaza and gathering space. On most schemes, either plaza, depending on the kind of shelter, we could accommodate that depending on how the fundraising goes. So just to let you know, these are fluid enough that we can accommodate those. We show some modest changes around the restroom, kind of creating some access points to the restroom, and these are actually the kind of utility entrances in there. Is that where we want to spend some money? Don't have to spend play money on that. We would use some of our other budget to do that too, but the idea, would we want to try to enhance that, so you kind of look at that as a contrast between the two streets. So around the loop path, before I go to the children's garden, just kind of a unique thing that we thought for an entrance. The crosswalk actually lines up here. And so what we did is split this, and what the idea is that if any kids were headed that way, the idea is to slow them down. We created the kids path, the kids size entrance on this side, and the adult entrance on this side. Not that you can use either one, but the idea that we scale it for the kids, but we split them so that you don't just have that straight shot out into the crosswalk. And the other scheme is actually a straight shot, so look at that as an option and a contrast. So the kids garden. So again, it's the Northwest, and we're kind of inspired by where we live. And so the idea of these patterns actually being raindrops, and so the older raindrop has the bigger rain, but it slowly erased by the smaller rains and the newer raindrops. So this is the existing pergola at the center, and we create kind of a paved space. It's kind of an inwardly focused space right now. You sit on the benches the way they are and face each other, but we thought that the garden wants to expand out from there. So we added a ring around that so you could actually sit on those benches either way and face either way and be able to enjoy that space. Again, the idea of the garden space with all these, what do we call them, instant action? What was the quick change, sunflower, green poles, that type of thing in this space. And then this side becomes our experience space, our get dirty space. And so some of the opportunities to participate in that. Kind of flanking this and sweeping out, you kind of see the kind of golden grassy of the Palouse. So we're kind of drawing a little bit more Eastern Washington into this, and the idea of how that could help frame this whole space. The hedge is here, but you'll notice that the opening is closed off and the stair is gone. But we put an option to sweep the path down around. Kind of that idea that if people are moving through the park, that they can enter here and just move on past. Kind of not privatizing, but kind of taking the children's areas off the main route of travel. So people can pass by, but they don't have to go right through the middle of it. So that's an option to consider if you notice that's a little bit of a change there. So, in both schemes, and I probably didn't mention this at all, but we have kind of shown ideas of how we can tie these discovery elements throughout, the butterflies and the features that way. So again, look at kind of those ideas and some of the other layers of details and things that we'll get to. So